Rose was a poor cleaner in one of the tallest glass buildings in the city. She wasn't famous, she wasn't rich. She was just a girl with a mop, a cracked phone and old wired earphones. But every night, after the offices emptied and silence filled the towering glass building, Rose danced on the 42nd floor, with the city lights flickering behind her and the marble floor shining beneath her feet. She turned cleaning into choreography. Mopping became a movement. The windows reflected her like she was the star of a show no one knew existed. Music was her escape, her therapy, her rebellion. Rent was always late, bills kept coming, and loneliness clung to her. But Rose never stopped dancing, because when the music played, she was free in a way the richest people in that building would never understand. What she didn't know was this: someone had started watching, and he wasn't just anyone. He was Zayn Malik, the billionaire CEO of Malik Innovations, and she was about to change everything. Zayn Malik was a man who lived above the clouds, literally and figuratively. From his glass-walled office, he controlled one of the biggest tech companies in the country. Cold, brilliant, and distant. People feared him. He rarely smiled, never trusted anyone, and was known for his brutal honesty. But one night, while on a late call with investors in Japan, he looked out his window and froze. There, in the building across the street, was a girl. She was dancing, not like a trained professional, but like someone dancing because her heart couldn't take the silence anymore. She held a mop like a microphone and spun as if the city lights were her audience. Zayn found himself staring, forgetting the call entirely, letting the voice on the phone fade. He had seen dancers on stages, in theaters, at gala events, but none like this. Who was she? How could someone so ordinary look so alive? Zayn began staying late at the office just to catch a glimpse of her. He had a private room built at the top of the tower for late-night meetings, but now it was his personal observatory. He brought in a telescope, as if observing the stars, only his star was right across the street. At first, he told himself it was curiosity. Then he admitted to Kevin, his longtime assistant, that he needed to know who the girl was. Kevin was stunned. His boss had never once shown interest in anyone. "She's just a cleaner?" Kevin asked cautiously. Zayn didn't even flinch. "She's more than that. She's a mystery." Kevin did what he was told. He traced the building, contacted the cleaning agency, and returned with a file. "Her name is Rose David, 24, lives in a shared apartment with 2 other women. No criminal record, works 3 jobs. Her mother passed away last year. No father listed." Zayn absorbed every detail. Rose. Her name felt like music in his head. He had seen models and actresses, socialites and CEOs, but none like her. There was something about the way she moves in silence, as if the world didn't deserve her story. And he wanted to hear it. The next morning, Rose received an unexpected message from her supervisor. She had been temporarily reassigned to clean the executive floors of Malik Innovations, the highest-profile contract her agency had. It paid a little more and was known for its strict guidelines. Rose felt nervous. What she didn't know was that Zayn had engineered the entire thing. He made sure she would be assigned to his floor, scheduled the cleaning hours around his presence, and even adjusted his own calendar to ensure their paths would cross. The day she arrived, she wore her usual navy blue uniform, tied her curls back and kept her eyes low. Her heart raced as she stepped onto the silent floor, where the air smelled of cologne and power. Zayn was waiting, but not in his usual sharp suit. Today, he wore a simple black sweater and jeans. The nameplate on his office door was gone, quietly removed. When Rose stepped in with her mop and cleaning cart, she stopped in her tracks. It was the most beautiful room she had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline like a painting. The white marble floors gleamed under soft lights. Awards and plaques lined the shelves in quiet confidence. In the corner, an elegant black piano sat untouched, like a secret waiting to be played. She exhaled quietly, took a breath, and began to clean. "You clean well?" a calm voice said from somewhere behind her. She jumped a little and turned. "Oh, I didn't see you there," she said quickly. Zayn was sitting on the couch, arms folded, eyes steady. He gave a faint smile. "You have a rhythm even when you mop." Rose blushed, unsure if he was teasing her or being serious. Without even knowing he was the CEO, she lowered her head, slightly in gratitude, and resumed cleaning, though her hands trembled. Zane watched her more closely now. This was the first time he truly saw her, not just as a cleaner or dancer. Up close, she was breathtaking, not in a loud or showy way, but in that quiet, untouched kind of beauty that made his chest tighten. So pure, so unaware of her own glow. And for a moment, Zane felt something unfamiliar, his heartbeat skipping for someone who didn't even know she was the most captivating thing in the room. That night he waited for her to dance like she had before. But she didn't dance. The next day, she opened the supply closet to find a small black box wrapped in gold ribbon. Her name was scribbled on a tag, for Rose. Her breath caught. Looking around to make sure no one was watching, she opened it. Inside were a pair of wireless high-end earbuds, a tiny speaker and a folded note. For the girl who dances like the world doesn't hurt, don't stop dancing. Keep dancing. She didn't know what to feel. Fear, joy, confusion. Her fingers trembled as she turned the speaker on and connected it to her phone. That night, after checking the hallways, she put on the earbuds, turned up her music and let herself go. She danced with more emotion than she ever had before. Her eyes were closed, but she felt alive again. Zane watched from the dark, his heart beating fast. The soundless dance was the most beautiful performance he'd ever seen, and she didn't even know it was for him. Word started to spread around the office, quiet whispers, curious stares, and a change in energy that didn't go unnoticed. Brielle, a junior manager who had long hoped to catch Zane's eye, began to grow suspicious. She noticed he stayed late more often now, always lingering in his office after work hours. One day, unable to hold back, she asked Kevin directly, "Is he seeing someone?" Kevin didn't say a word, but his silence said everything. That evening, Brielle stayed behind, pretending to finish some work. But her real reason was clear. She wanted answers. From the shadows of the hallway, she followed the direction of Zane's gaze through the glass wall of his office. He wasn't looking at any file or screen. He was watching the cleaner. Rose danced softly as she cleaned, lost in her own world. And Zane was smiling, genuinely, quietly, as if nothing else in the world mattered. Brielle's curiosity froze into something colder, jealousy. She had been trying for months to get Zane's attention without success. Now suddenly, he was watching a cleaner, like she was the most precious thing in the building. One night Rose was cleaning like she always did, headphones on, eyes closed, moving with quiet grace. To her, it felt like turning work into something soft and beautiful. She had no idea anyone was watching, but Brielle was. From another floor, hidden in the dark, she recorded the moment with her phone. The next morning, the video was everywhere. The title was cruel: "Cleaning Girl Dances in Billionaire's Office. Is she trying to seduce him?" It went viral fast. When Rose walked into the building, everything had changed. People stared, some laughed, others whispered behind her back. Her heart dropped. She tried to hold her head high, but their eyes felt heavy. Their words stung like thorns. She ran into the bathroom and broke down in tears. Zane found out not long after, furious. He called his legal team and demanded the video be taken down from every platform. But it was too late. The damage had been done. The world had seen something innocent and turned it into a joke. And Rose was left to carry the shame for simply being herself. Zane had heard the rumors. Kevin had even warned him that people were talking. But he didn't care. His mind was already made up. Rose had captured his heart. Without even trying, he noticed everything about her. The way she laughed softly to herself, the strength in her silence, how she tucked a loose curl behind her ear when she was nervous, how she sometimes paused while cleaning just to look at the moon through the window. She didn't know it, but every little thing she did pulled him in deeper. That evening, Zane sat alone in his office. The lights were off. He sat in the shadows, quietly watching her from across the room like he always did. But that night, something was different. Rose didn't dance. She moved quietly, slowly, no music, no rhythm, just silent cleaning. Zane watched, waiting, hoping she'd start dancing again, but she never did, and for the first time in days, he felt the emptiness. He missed her laugh, her rhythm, her light. He didn't just miss her dancing, he missed her. The next morning, Rose arrived at work early, hoping the rumors had died down. She avoided the executive floor, keeping herself busy with mop buckets and window cleaner, head down, heart heavy. But her routine was suddenly interrupted when her supervisor approached her with a note. "You've been requested personally," he said. "Executive suite, Mr. Zane's office." Her stomach dropped. "Requested by name?" she asked softly. The supervisor shrugged. "That's what the memo says." When Rose stepped into the office, she tried to stay calm, tried to act normal. Zane was standing by the window, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at the city. "You stop dancing," he said quietly. Without turning around, she froze. It felt unsafe, like someone was watching me. He turned then, his gaze soft but intense. I was. "It was me." The words hit her like a wave. Rose's chest tightened. "Why?" Zane walked toward her slowly. "Because I saw someone free, someone alive, and I couldn't look away. I didn't mean to scare you." Rose didn't speak, her hands clenched around the cleaning cloth. Zane continued. "I left the earbuds. The note, I had you move here so I could get to know you, not to control you." She looked up. "You're the CEO." "Yes, and I'm just a cleaner." "You're the only person I've seen in years who doesn't wear a mask." Her heart pounded. She didn't know whether to run or stay. But in that moment, the walls between them cracked. The fallout was immediate. Word got out. Rose had been requested, personally by Zane. Brielle's anger boiled. She stormed into Kevin's office, demanding answers. What is she doing in his suite? Is he losing his mind? Kevin stayed calm. "That's none of your business, Brielle. Maybe it's time you focused on your own tasks." But Brielle wasn't finished. That night, she followed Rose from the building. She stayed far enough behind to remain unnoticed, taking photos from a distance as Rose walked home. She wasn't looking for proof of wrongdoing. She was creating a scandal. The next day, Rose sat alone on the rooftop garden of the building, legs dangling off a stone bench. She hugged her knees to her chest, trying to make sense of it all. She had never asked for this. She never expected to be noticed, especially not by someone like Zane. The wind played with her curls as she stared at the night sky. She didn't hear Zane approach until he sat beside her, careful to keep space between them. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "for everything that's happened so fast." Rose glanced at him. "Why me? There are women in your world who would give anything to be in my place." "I don't want them," he replied. "They wear masks. You're real." She looked away. "Being real doesn't make this any easier." "I know," he said softly, hesitating before reaching for her hands. "But I want to help carry the weight. I want to understand what you're afraid of." She took a shaky breath. "This feels like a dream, but dreams don't survive in my world. When you grow up holding your breath, waiting for the next bad thing, you don't get used to kindness." Zane's voice broke. "Then let me be the one who teaches you how." The next morning, the company woke up to a new scandal. Photos of Zane sitting close to Rose on the rooftop spread like wildfire. The internet exploded. Billionaire CEO and the cleaner, secret romance. Rose had no idea, but the moment she stepped into the building, she could feel it. 100 eyes, heavy silence, her name being whispered like a joke. Zane's office was under siege. Kevin burst in, phone in hand. "It's everywhere," he said. "They know. The whole company knows." Zane scanned the headlines, his jaw tightening. "Get legal to issue takedown requests. I'll handle the rest." Meanwhile, Rose stood in the hallway, frozen by shame. Brielle walked past with a smirk, whispering loud enough to be heard. Guess scrubbing floors wasn't all she was after. Tears welled up, but Rose didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she turned and walked straight to the elevator. She didn't know where she was going, just that she needed air. Zane found her near the parking lot, sitting alone on a bench, her head in her hands. He approached slowly. "I'm so sorry," he said softly. "This wasn't supposed to happen like this." She looked up, her face tight with hurt. "Why me, Zane?" "You could have anyone." He knelt in front of her, unbothered by who might see him. "Because no one's ever made me feel seen until you." Her tears finally fell, not because of the gossip, but because she didn't know if she could survive the world that came with him. and he didn't know how to protect her from it. The gossip didn't fade. It grew louder. Everywhere Rose went, people stared, some with pity, most with judgment. Co-workers whispered behind her back. Security guards looked at her differently. Even the other janitors she used to share snacks with now avoided her.
She stopped dancing.
Stopped listening to music. Even stopped cleaning the top floors. She requested a transfer to the basement level, where no one cared who you were, and no one looked twice. She needed space, and more than anything, she needed silence. Zane noticed immediately. She was avoiding him. He waited near the stairwells, checked the footage, even rode the service elevator, but Rose stayed hidden. It broke something in him. He called Kevin. "Book a press conference." Kevin blinked. "Sir, if the world wants a story, I'll give them the truth. All of it." The next day, media cameras filled the lobby of Zayn Malik Corp. Reporters buzzed, expecting a business announcement or a corporate deal. Instead, Zayn Malik walked up to the podium with no script, no entourage, no armor. "I'm not here to talk about business," he began. "I'm here to talk about a woman. A woman whose only mistake was dancing when she thought no one was watching. A woman who reminded me what it means to feel alive." He paused. "Her name is Rose, and I won't let her be bullied or shamed because I saw something beautiful in her. You can mock me, but leave her alone." Rose watched the live stream from a storage room, hand over her mouth. The whole company was watching Zayn fight for her. The press conference changed everything. People stopped laughing. Some even apologized. The whispers turned into awe, and the hate began to lose its grip. Rose wasn't just a cleaner anymore. She was the girl the billionaire chose. Brielle's plan had backfired. Zayn traced the photo leak. Within hours, he knew it was her. "You're done here," he said. "Firing her on the spot? You're choosing her over me?" She snapped. "Over your company's image?" "I'm choosing the truth," he said, "and you crossed the line." Later, Rose found out. "You fired her. For me?" she asked, stunned. "For justice. For respect. For you," Zayn said, to cheer her up. Zayn planned a surprise for Rose. He asked her to trust him, gently blindfolded her, and took her to an old dance studio downtown. The floor creaked beneath their feet. The mirrors were dusty, and the lights were dim, but the place had heart. It was special. Rose's eyes widened when the blindfold came off. This was the studio where she used to train. Years ago, she had dreamed of becoming a dancer. But dreams didn't pay bills. She had to let it go and find a job that could put food on the table. "How did you know?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Zayn smiled gently. "I asked around. I just wanted to give something back to you." Rose walked slowly to the center of the room. She stood still for a moment, then closed her eyes. The music began to play, and she danced, barefoot, free, and full of everything she had kept locked inside. Zayn watched her completely still, completely in awe. That night, when the music stopped, he walked up to her and said softly, "I think I'm falling in love with you." Rose looked at him unsure. Her heart wanted to shout yes, but her mind was still afraid. After that night, Zayn knew Rose needed something more. Not a mansion, not diamonds, a dream. So he started making calls. 2 weeks later, he led her to a renovated studio downtown. Wood floors, mirrored walls, and natural light streaming through tall windows. She gasped. "What is this?" she asked. "It's yours," he said. "I bought it for you to dance, to teach, to create. No more hiding in shadows." She stepped inside, shoes clicking gently on the polished floor. It smelled like freedom, like beginnings. Over the next weeks, Zayn watched her come alive in ways he never imagined. She choreographed routines, played music again, and helped underprivileged kids take their first dance steps. The new dance studio quickly became Rose's sanctuary. Every child's laughter, every beat of the music, every quiet evening spent rehearsing, alone made her believe, for the first time in a long time, that maybe a happiness wasn't just for other people. Zayn visited when he could. He never interrupted, just watched from the doorway, heart full. One night, after the kids had gone and the music faded, Rose turned and saw him standing there. "You always sneak in like that?" she asked with a small smile. Zayn stepped forward, slow and gentle. "I like watching you dance. It's like watching someone breathe magic." Rose laughed, a little shy, but she didn't look away this time. He reached out, brushing a curl from her face. "You look happy." "And I think I am," she whispered. They stood in silence for a beat, the kind of silence that felt full, not empty. Then he took her hand, pulled her close, and for the first time, they danced, no music, just heartbeats and soft smiles. In that moment, the world faded, and it was just the two of them, moving together, slowly, like they'd been waiting their whole lives to meet in this one quiet place. Zayn held her hand gently, looking into her eyes with the softness she hadn't seen before. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Rose asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "For coming into my life," he replied. "You've made me a better person. I didn't even know I needed saving, until you showed up and did it without trying." Rose's heart swelled. She wasn't used to being seen like this, not just as a cleaner or a dancer, but as someone who mattered. She smiled, tears threatening to fall. "Dan, you," she said, "you gave me a reason to dream again." They stood there, in the middle of the music studio, holding on to each other like they finally understood what it meant to be home. Meanwhile, just when Rose thought she was finally moving on, leaving her past behind, pain found its way back. It always does, especially when life starts to feel safe. One rainy afternoon, as she sat alone in her dance studio, a voice called out, "Rose!" She turned and froze. It was her father. Her grip tightened on the railing. "What are you doing here?" He looked older, worn out, but the same coldness was still in his eyes. "I saw your face online, with that billionaire CEO. Thought maybe it was time we reconnected. Family is family, right?" Rose's chest tightened. The last time she saw him, he left her and her mother with nothing but unpaid bills and an eviction notice. "You're not family," she said quietly. He frowned. "Come on, I raised you." "You raised your fists," she snapped. "And you walked away when we needed you most. You left us, left Mom to die." His voice turned sharp. "So now you think you're better than me because you're dating a billionaire?" Before things could escalate, Zayn appeared. "If you come near her again," he said, "you'll deal with the police." Her father cursed under his breath and walked out, and Rose melted into Zayn's arms. He said nothing, just held her. And in that silence she felt safe. A few weeks later, on a clear Saturday evening, Zayn asked Rose to dress up, nothing too fancy, just something that made her feel beautiful. She didn't ask questions. She had learned to trust him. He drove her through the city, quiet music playing in the car, his fingers gently laced with hers. When they arrived, she looked up and gasped. It was the 42nd floor, the same glass office building where it all began. The place she once danced with a mop in hand, never imagining someone was watching, falling in love. The elevator opened to soft candlelight and music. The marble floors sparkled, and the windows glowed with the city lights. In the middle of the room stood a small table, set for two, with white roses and her favorite dessert. Rose turned to Zayn, eyes wide. "You did all this?" He smiled. "I just brought us back to where I first saw you, where everything started." They ate. They laughed. Then, as the music shifted to something slower, Zayn stood and offered his hand. "Dance with me?" he asked, barefoot. Just like that night in the studio, she took his hand. And as they moved slowly across the marble floor, Zayn suddenly paused. He reached into his pocket, dropped to one knee, and opened a small velvet box. "Rose," he said, eyes full of love. "From the first moment I saw you dancing, I knew you were different. You didn't try to be seen, but you changed everything. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Zayn." And as they kissed under the soft city lights, it felt like the whole world finally made sense. The wedding was small and full of love. No cameras, just close friends, a few family, and those who had been part of their journey. It took place in a quiet garden, surrounded by fresh flowers and soft music. Rose wore a simple white gown that flowed with the breeze. Zayn wore a classic suit, his eyes never leaving her. As they stood hand in hand, eyes locked, the sky opened and soft rain began to fall. But no one moved, no one ran. They simply smiled through the raindrops, as if the sky itself had come to bless them. When they kissed, drenched and laughing, it wasn't perfect. It was real. The world kept turning, but in that moment time stood still. Just for them. Months passed, and Rose's studio blossomed into something bigger than she'd ever imagined. She partnered with local non-profits to offer free dance, therapy classes for children in shelters, turning her space into a sanctuary for healing, joy and second chances. What began as a dream had become a movement, and for the first time in her life, Rose felt full of purpose, of peace, of love. One quiet morning, Rose sat Zane down, her smile glowing with a secret. In her hands was a small, wrapped box. "Open it," she said softly. Zane untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes. He stared at them, then looked up at her, eyes wide. "Are you serious?" Rose nodded, tears already gathering in her eyes. Without a word, he pulled her into his arms, holding her close as emotion filled the room. Half laughter, half tears, a child raised on love and music. He whispered, This is the beginning of everything I never knew my heart was missing." Years later, Zane walked through the building where it had all begun. The 42nd floor still had those tall windows, still offered the same breathtaking view of the city. He stood there quietly, holding his daughter's tiny hand as they both looked out over the skyline. "Daddy," she asked, her voice curious, "is this where you saw Mommy dancing?" He smiled gently. "Yes, right there." She looked up at him. "And you loved her from that far away?" "From that far," he said softly, "and even farther now." That evening, back at home, Rose danced again, barefoot on the grass in their backyard, twirling freely as their daughter clapped and laughed with joy. Zane sat on the porch, one hand on his heart, watching the two people who had changed his world. Because sometimes fairy tales don't begin in castles. Sometimes they begin with a girl, a mop, and music no one else can hear, except the one who truly sees her. The end. If you enjoyed this story, tap the like button and hit subscribe for more captivating tales coming your way.